Welcome to a short presentation of how to start a business and pay tax as a sex worker. In this presentation, we will address the following: how to start a business, how to pay tax and VAT, a brief review of the regulations, and what the calculations looks like. Let's start with how the regulations are. In Norway, the main rule is that if you have a krone in profit from sales, you must pay tax on that krone. Practically speaking, this means that everyone who earns money from sales must pay tax, regardless of how much or how little they earn. But is sex work considered work in Norway? The tax authorities says yes, so we must assume that that is the case. The rules also state that anyone who earns money from their own work, meaning they do not receive a salary from anyone else but receives money directly from customers, must register a company in the State Register for Organizations and Companies, also known as the Brønnøysund Registers, or BREG. The type of company you register is called a sole proprietorship, or ENK. You can instead choose to register a limited company, or AS, but it is usually not worth spending time on that unless you earn over 1 million kroner in a year. It is important for the state to have an overview of where and how money is made, and that money laundering or other criminal activities do not take place. Therefore, everyone who has their own business must register in BREG with information that says who owns the company, contact information for the person who owns the company, address of the company, how the company makes money, i.e. what it sells, and the rules state that there must be as accurate a description as possible. It is therefore not enough to just write consultant, for example. It is important to point out that BREG is a public register, meaning that anyone can look it up and see what is written there.
So hi, this is Lilith from the future. Hi. Something I forgot to bring up in the recording you just saw is that when you register in the Brønnøysund's registry, the information there is not only public to everyone, it is targeted by people who sell stuff to companies. Since you are running a company, they will try to sell you advertising services, company phones, company power services, stuff like that. And I'm here to tell you from experience, don't bother with any of it. You're not gonna need it, and sometimes it's expensive contracts that are difficult to get out of. So just a free tips from me. Be aware you're gonna get a lot of those phones, and just ignore them. Thanks.
So let's say you have registered in BREG. Now what? Next is to register the sales. The regulations state that all sales must be registered in an approved cash register system. This means both old-fashioned physical cash registers, approved digital solutions, and approved safes with detailed sales receipts. In practical terms, this means that most people today use digital solutions such as Settle. How do you pay tax? You do this by registering the profit in the tax deduction card, which is an ongoing calculation of income that you fill out annually via the tax authority's website. In the tax deduction card, you can choose to fill in a field called Profit from Other Business. The amount you fill in here is the total sum of the year that you assume you are left with after expenses have been deducted. For example, let's say that in the month of January we earned 20,000 kroner selling sex, and that to sell sex we had to pay 200 kroner for the phone, 2,000 kroner for advertising, 1,000 kroner for travel, and 500 kroner to replace the makeup we used at work. The sum of these expenses is 3,700 kroner. So we are left with 16,300 kroner in surplus for the month of January, which we report in and is used to calculate tax. If 16,300 is approximately what we tend to be left with each month, we can calculate annual income by multiplying the amount by 12. In our example, it will be 195,600 kroner, which is what we must report as profit from other business on the tax deduction card. Based on this sum, how much you have to pay in tax that year is calculated. The more you earn, the higher percentage you pay in tax. It is recommended to calculate between 25% and 35% for tax until you see more exactly what the figures actually are. It is often recommended to slightly increase the amount you report, so that you do not accidentally pay too little tax and have to pay extra later. If you pay too much tax, you will get it back the following year after you have reported exact figures to the tax authorities. Most people who run E&K will be awarded advance tax. Advance tax means that you must pay the calculated tax for the coming year before you earn the money. You get a calculated amount for the whole year, which is divided into 4 different payments in the coming year, each of which is sent as a regular bill. Let us now consider value-added tax, also known as merverdiavgift, moms, MVA, or VAT. There has been some discussion about VAT and whether sex workers should pay it. As of today, we interpret the regulations as sex workers having to pay VAT, but the discussion is complicated. VAT is a tax that the state requires from all sales. VAT is calculated before anything else, completely separately from tax, and comes in 4 sizes depending on what is sold. High rates, i.e. 25%, which is most commonly used. Medium rates, i.e. 15%. This is most commonly found on food. Low rate, i.e. between 6% and 12%. This is usually found on public transport and accommodation. And 0%. Only very specific industries have this. One of these industries is art, which many will believe stripping falls under as dance. VAT is calculated directly from the sale, i.e. the entire amount received from the customer. The idea with VAT is that you should increase the prices by the VAT rate, so that it is the customer who pays your price, plus VAT, which you simply pass on to the state. In practice, there are few who can increase their prices, so for many it will just be an additional fee. So the VAT rate is not how much of what you already earn that you have to pay, but instead how much you have to increase the selling price by and pay. In practice, for sex workers with a high rate, this means that 20% of the sales price is set aside for VAT. The other part of VAT that many people don't think about is the VAT you get refunded from expenses. When you pay for expenses, part of this is VAT to other companies, which you may have seen if you have looked at receipts. This amount is repaid by deducting the VAT on expenses from the VAT you are supposed to pay from your sales. Let's look at our example again. The month of January had 20,000 kroner in income, 20% of which is 4,000 kroner, which must be therefore paid as VAT. Expenses were 3,700 kroner, of which 2,700 kroner was from goods and services with a high percentage rate, and 1,000 kroner from travel, which has a low rate, let's say 12%. This means that out of 2,700 kroner, we get back 540 kroner in VAT, and out of 1,000 kroner, we get back 107.14 kroner in VAT. So even if we first pay 4,000 kroner in VAT for January, we get back a total of 647.14 kroner. VAT must always appear on the receipts, so you usually don't have to calculate VAT yourself. 4,000 kroner minus 647.14 kroner is 3,352.86 kroner. In our example, we will therefore pay 3,352.86 kroner in our VAT for January. The final VAT sums for income and expenses are filled in on a separate form on the tax authority's website. Remember that the sums of the different VAT rates must be filled in on their own in the form. For example, the sum of low rate VAT must not be calculated together with high rate VAT. The form must do this for you. This form is filled in 6 times a year after sales, meaning that you report and pay in amounts for the previous months. As stated, VAT is calculated separately from everything else. This means that when you have used part of an amount to calculate VAT, that part should not be used in any other tax calculation. In our example, this means that the final calculation looks like this. We start with 20,000 kroner in income and 3,700 kroner in expenses. 4,000 kroner of the income and 647.14 kroner of the expenses are VAT, which is calculated separately. 20,000 kroner minus 4,000 kroner equals 16,000 kroner. And 3,700 kroner minus 647.14 kroner equals 3,052.86 kroner. We then have 16,000 kroner of income and 3,052.86 kroner of expenses, which are used to calculate tax. 16,000 kroner minus 3,052.86 kroner equals 12,947.14 kroner. In our example for January, we therefore have 12,947.14 kroner left in surplus, i.e. after VAT and expenses, which is used to calculate tax. I hope this helps more people understand how tax and VAT work in Norway. As a sex worker, you essentially follow the same rules for company as everyone else. But where other companies have access to accounting programs and accountants, the PIMP paragraph unfortunately makes it impossible for sex workers to use these services today. So sex workers unfortunately have to figure it out for themselves. An accountant or auditor is today allowed to advise you, but not to do the work for you, which is what they usually do. So, if you are unsure, get in touch. Pion can help find accountants who offer help to sex workers. Thank you very much for your time and have a nice day.